Welcome back to the club. How do you recover from a big loss? We talked with Anthony Thomson, the builder of banks, how we lost $116 million in committed funding. We talked with Chris Skinner as well on how to make great decisions and getting the courage to keep on going. Imagine going back, say, 5 years ago. What company, and I'll ask this individually, would you wish you founded? Obviously, AT, it's tough for you because I think you have great companies as well. But if you can park that as well, and just interested in what your thoughts are in the market and where your view is for the future.
Do you want to start with that, Chris?
There's a number of companies that are around the world doing interesting things. So one I'd pick out is Craft Silicon in Kenya. And what they do is they provide a white label mobile banking payment service to anyone in other countries, telcos as well as banks, that want to launch mobile financial inclusion. And I think I'd like them to become one of the first homegrown African fintech unicorns. They're working on it. Hopefully they'll get there. I'm involved in quite a number of other companies that are developing into unicorns, and I've invested in them like Meniga and 11FS and Moven. But outside those, because I'm biased on those ones, I really like Stripe. It's actually it's now almost 10 years old. But what amazes me about Stripe is it was started by John and Patrick Collinson, two brothers, when they were 21 and 19 years old. And what they do in terms of what the product does is creates a really easy way to do checkout online. And it's just a plug and play code. In the industry, we call this application program interface, an API, plug and play code, 7 lines of code. And yet they built a company in 9 years that's now worth over $20 billion US. And just with 1,000 people, they've got a global platform. They're used by Apple Pay, Uber, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, because it's such an easy piece of code to use. And for me, they are the poster child of the fintech revolution, because what's happening, and there's many examples of this, but they're the biggest and best example, is kids who can code are reinventing banking, business and finance, because they understand technology, they understand how to develop these services, and they're deploying them in a way that is really cool, really easy and really simple, and doesn't involve all this complexity that the industry's got from all that regulatory history. And there's lots of other companies doing this stuff. I mean, Jack Dorsey with Square, Jack Dorsey being the Twitter guy, but he formed a company called Square that does really easy small business checkout using a mobile phone terminal that's just easy to take credit card and debit card payments. There's hundreds of little companies with lots of good ideas, and the challenge they all have is the execution of those ideas. But there's a number of them, like the ones I mentioned in Klarna, in Europe, Revolut, Monzo, Atom, that I think are going to change the face of the industry over time. But it doesn't happen overnight. It's amazing. Today we look at cryptocurrencies, for example, and Bitcoin, and go, it's still a bit scary, but it's 10 years old. So it's amazing how these things slowly are changing the face and the dynamics of the industry.
I don't think I could name a specific company, but I think what I wish I'd recognized earlier is what Google did probably 10 years ago, which they said from today onwards, everything is mobile first. It's just recognizing the role that mobile was going to play in our life earlier than I did. But then that's the story of my life. I was always a bit later than I should have been.
That's good. If I'm going to sort of 2 more questions. I think, if you were to, obviously throughout your business career, AT, and Chris, yourself as well, how do you go about making great decisions?
I'm not sure you ever do make great decisions, because decision making tends not to be binary. It's not one route is absolutely right and one route is absolutely wrong. They tend to be, one might be more right than the other, one might be a little more wrong than the other. And I guess the analogy I would use is, like Chris, I've invested in a number of businesses. And when I look at who I'm going to invest in or not invest in, I would much rather invest in brilliant people with a mediocre business plan than mediocre people with a brilliant business plan. So for me, the decision is about, are they the right people? If they're the right people, they will succeed pretty much whatever they do. Doesn't matter how good the plan is. But a brilliant plan with mediocre people is not for me.
Yeah, I'd probably change the emphasis slightly, which is in my life, I've sort of been through lots of changes and a number of times been challenged. And so in 2002, I was made redundant. And at that time, I didn't really know what to do. And by the time I worked out what to do, I kind of run out of money, which is personally a very challenging situation. And I'd say if you're not scared, then you're probably not going to progress. And I think the frightening situation when you're in a position where you really have to start thinking, properly and focusing properly, gets you into a position where you can progress. And so when I look back, the best things that have happened to me in terms of business decisions is when I've been frightened or scared and had to do something and act. Because and this is, to me, is a big message to the big banks, because a lot of them are in a position where they're very satisfied, they're very comfortable. The profits coming in every year, the bonuses coming in every year, the management doesn't have to worry too much about losing their job. How, in that situation, are you ever going to make some major decision to change your world? You're not. You're just going to say more of the same, thanks very much. You have to, even if you create it, and it's a false thing that you've created, you have to create a discomfort. You have to be uncomfortable to progress. And if you don't have that discomfort, then you'll just be complacent.
It's great advice. I think if you were going, last question, I guess, is if you were going to go back 20 years, what business advice would you give yourself?
It's a great question, because I speak a lot to 12th graders. I speak a lot to students about what they want to do when they grow up, what they want to be in business. And they often say, you've been successful, and what's the secret of your success? I go, well, whatever modicum of success I had, if there's one thing that's underpinned it, and research I've been doing with my co-author for the next book, which is about how entrepreneurs succeed, it comes down to one thing. And I say to them, if I could give you one piece of advice, it's this: get up every day and go to work. And you go, doesn't sound like a really good piece of advice. Now, well, let me put it in context for you. When we were raising the money for Metro Bank, we needed $100 million. Couldn't get any traction in the UK, so we went to raise it in America. And it was tough. Spent many weeks, loads of road shows. We finally got commitments to $116 million. And I flew home to the UK thinking, God, this is real. It's going to happen now. We've raised the money. Bank's going to happen. And my joke is I got home on the Saturday morning and I told my wife the great news, and she went out to spend the money, which is a joke, I hasten to add. On the Monday morning, Lehman Brothers went broke. And of the $116 million we had committed, 65 million of it disappeared that day. Within 2 weeks, it had all gone. Some of the companies had actually gone. And it would have been, I've been doing this for 2 years, working without an income, real belief in doing this. The money was all committed, and then it went. And the idea about just going, I'll just stay in bed, it's all too tough. And I said, I get up, I go to work. And every successful entrepreneur I've met, when you drill down to what differentiates them from the ones who didn't succeed, it's just about persistency. It is be persistent.
It's great advice.
Yeah, I think I'd reinforce that, which is the point I guess I was making about being uncomfortable, in that you have to create the disturbance of yourself to always be hungry to go to work every day and to always be persistent and focus and achieve. But if I was going back 20 years to advise myself, then I'd probably say be more confident. And a lot of the issue that myself and I see in a lot of people, particularly in young people who are trying to start businesses or who are trying to sort of work in large companies, is that they're trying to please people too much. And if you have a great idea, or if you have a great belief in something that you think could work, then don't take the knocks. Be more confident in your belief. And I think it's very hard to follow your beliefs because and it's going back to be persistent. But it's being persistent and being focused and following your beliefs, and not actually getting the knockbacks and saying, okay, this will never work. Having said that, if everybody knocks you back at every step all the time, take a rain check and just reinforce that you really have a right belief. Because if you watch the Dragon's Den, Shark's Pit, whatever it's called, if you watch those programs, there are some people who have really stupid ideas. So don't always follow a stupid idea, but be confident in yourself.
Awesome. AT, Chris, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom. Really appreciate what you're contributing, guys, to business and the insight in digital banking. I wish you guys both the best of luck.
Thanks, Fred.
Thank you.
See you guys later.